Nowadays, it's very easy to go online on Instagram, YouTube, and see all these people live these amazing experiences, whether that is traveling to exotic places, fancy dinners, getting attractive women, meeting cool people, making a lot of money and buying nice stuff. And when you look at that, you probably wish that you could either live that yourself or maybe overcome the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out, and just stop caring about it. Because maybe you even feel some jealousy, which is rather an uncomfortable feeling. So I'm gonna tell you, as a guy who's now on the other side, and I don't have FOMO anymore, I'm not jealous no matter how fancy or nice that experience that I'm missing out on is. I will tell you how I did it and the big mistake I made along the way, because I overcomplicated this whole thing way more than I had to, which is the exact same common mistake I see most people do when they desire these things. So if you want all of these, there are two paths that you can take, which most people assume these two are the only option. Although spoilers, I'm gonna talk about a third one, which I believe is the right one, but not enough people talk about this. But let's begin with number one, because this is what most monks do. In a way, it's basically to detach yourself from those desires so that you can be free and at peace. Because it's like what Naval Ravikant says, which by the way, I found this photo of him that I find so funny. He looks so bad here. So basically what Naval says is that a desire is basically a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until that desire is fulfilled. So if you stop having desires, you will then never have these contracts with yourself that will make you unhappy, because you'll just be happy by default. So what some people do, the first step is that they stop consuming this content so that they don't know that all of these nice things exist, or they know that it exists, but they just ignore it and forget about it. But my personal opinion is that I don't think that's the right way to go about it, because on theory it sounds pretty nice, but on practice it just doesn't work. It's very difficult to pull off. And even Naval Ravikant says, like, let's first get you the nice car and then we'll get you to realize that it wasn't that big of a deal and that what's going to make you happy is something else. And I'm also going to assume that if you're watching this video, detachment is not the right solution for you. So this leads me to path number two, which I think it's closer to the truth, but it's not perfect. And this is something that Joe Rogan once said to a monk. So many years ago, they were recording some sort of documentary in which they were traveling around the world and interviewing different people. And this monk was basically telling Joe Rogan the thing that I was telling you before, just basically detaching from everything, that the key to happiness was to renounce to all of these material possessions so you wouldn't be a slave to them, because you would not be worrying and thinking about those things. But what Joe Rogan said to the monk is like, what if you did the exact opposite? What if you had so much of them that you also would not be a slave to them anymore, because you would actually be free to enjoy them as much as you want? Like, what if you had so much money that you can just spend it and never think about it? Or the same concept in other areas in life. What if you had lived so many crazy experiences and adventures and traveled to all of these places that now you don't think about it anymore and you're satisfied? Or the same thing with women. What if you can be with so many girls that you're not thinking about sex anymore and you don't feel like it's this thing that's trapping you with its desires? What if you make so many connections that you're also satisfied? What if you have such a nice body that you stop caring and obsessing about it? Basically mastering all of these things so that you're satiated and you don't feel like you're lacking anything, which is in a way what's causing you to be unhappy. In a way, it's like drowning the desire in over fulfillment. But the monk, it seemed like he couldn't get it, or at least he didn't agree with Joe Rogan. But honestly, I think Joe is closer to the truth. But the big problem, and where this theory falls, is that I don't think you actually have to overshoot it. You don't have to drown the desire by over fulfilling it, which is the big mistake that I see a lot of people make. They believe you have to make millions of dollars to do these things, and that's why it feels so unattainable and so impossible. And this is part of the frustration that makes you feel trapped and jealous. So here comes path number three, which, for you to understand it, I think it's going to help if you know my personal story very briefly, because I took path number two, and it's not that I regret it, but it was a bit overblown. So when I was a teenager, I started to read a lot of books, and I saw that I wanted it all and the kind of life that I wanted to live. I wanted the nice body, I wanted the money, I wanted the good relationships, I wanted the cool experiences. But the sad reality is that back then I was living in my hometown in the middle of nowhere, and there wasn't that much going for me. So what I did was to go to university because I wanted to learn business and how to make money. But eventually I dropped out because I realized that what I was learning was not that good. So what I did was to get a job at the real estate company, and I was doing marketing for them. And with the salary that they paid me, I basically reinvested almost 100% of the money into building an e-commerce business. And after 8 months, I was able to scale my store to 100K a month. And that is when I quit my job and then went on to do other profitable activities, whether that is affiliate marketing, consulting, and even other things like crypto. And also during that time, I got in pretty good shape and a few other things. But the thing is that it was not until I was fully loaded that I decided to start living my life a little and travel and do all of these things. But what I realized is that as soon as I started to live all of those cool experiences that I was talking about before, what gave me true satisfaction and made my attention turn from other people's lives into my own life were the crazy stories and adventures. The ones that don't require that much money. Like, I once got lost in an island in Indonesia in the middle of a jungle during a rainstorm, and I got rescued by a 7-year-old native kid who didn't speak English. Like, these sort of cool stories that now give me peace knowing that I've done a lot of cool stuff and I'm pretty happy with my life. It was not the fancy restaurants, the expensive hotels, resorts, the houses. I mean, it was nice, but it's very fleeting. You might be satisfied from those things, like maybe for a day or a week at most, but it's not gonna last that much. Meanwhile, the super cool stories, they do, and they're the ones that give you the satisfaction. And here's the thing, even if you wanna do the fancy stuff, like you can just network with high-level people, and if you get along with them, you get invited to a lot of cool stuff, even without you paying anything. Fancy parties, trips to other countries, whatever it is. Also, even when you're dating, I know it's very popular nowadays to say things like, oh, women never pay for anything, and it's only the guys. But I've met plenty of women who are very well off financially, and they have invited me to pretty nice places. I'm not saying that you have to manipulate people so that you can get in and have these experiences, but it's just like when you establish a genuine connection and you like them and they like you back, these things can happen. But the point are not those material things, like they're more these experiences that are actually not that expensive. And what happens is that once you've lived enough of those stories, been to enough places, you've had plenty of experiences, both good and bad. The bad ones are actually the most interesting ones. All these sort of things, you reach a point in which you're pretty satisfied with your life. Because the thing is that when you look at your life, if this is the cup of your life, and right now maybe it's here, like you have only filled it like 20% of the way, and then you look at other people's lives who maybe are at like 80 or 90%, the reason why it's painful is because you keep looking at yours and you look at them and you're like, man, they've done so much stuff. But then you slowly feel yours, and eventually you reach a point in which you stop looking at this because you're very satisfied with your life. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you don't need millions to do this. What you can do, honestly, is just like save up 20, 30K, and then you can travel to a place like South America, Southeast Asia, and you can go live there for a couple years and live countless of crazy experiences. And then that feeling will be gone that you're doing nothing with your life. And trust me, you don't need a lot of money to do that. But I know a lot of people who keep waiting and waiting and waiting because they think they need millions or hundreds of thousands or half a million, but you don't. And the problem is that when you're waiting for that thing to come in your life, it's the same stuff, like you are being unhappy because you have this desire, this contract that now makes you suffer even more because there's two parts of the contract. Like, I don't have the money yet, and I cannot do this thing that I really want to do yet. So you're double unhappy. And the beauty is that once you've done that and you're satisfied with your life, which is the point in which I am right now, because I've had plenty of successful businesses, I've traveled to a lot of different countries, I've been with plenty of girls that I wanted to be with, I've met a lot of amazing, incredible, interesting people, like all of these things. Now I'm just focused on myself, and I can just live in the most boring place ever, have the most boring day ever, but I don't care. There's no jealousy, there's no nothing. And this gives me a lot of peace, let me tell you. And you can do the same thing without spending a fortune. Now, maybe you're wondering how to get 20, 30K if you're starting out and you barely have nothing, or how to build a good physique, or maybe how to establish solid relationships. If that's you and you want to see in detail how I did it, check the link in the description because I have something for you that's very, very valuable. So go do that. But for now, that's it. Subscribe to the channel as well before you go, and hopefully I will see you on the next video. Take care. Peace.